Okay, we're back. The Nick and Shaun show. I don't mean to laugh at my own jokes there, but my screen. I've got two screens, so it may look like I'm kind of talking over people's shoulder. So just an FYI, the presentation's kind of over there, the camera's there. This is our story, I guess, on how we approached intelligent automation in Flight Centre and Flight Centre Travel Group. We are at the start of a huge journey, should I say. Can't even see the end of this journey, especially after what I know of what's to come. I think there is a grand master plan within Flight Centre Travel Group in terms of making our processes, our operational stuff, and hopefully our sales more efficient. And that's massively important for our business right now, especially as we all know with COVID-19. The travel landscape is like quicksand. So what is the structure of our presentation today? I will introduce Flight Centre, then I'll pass to Shaun, who'll delve more into the business problem itself. And then he'll pass back to me and I'll talk about the technical implementation. Okay. So I need to change Cool. Okay. Ephemeralization. It's a bit of a tricky word to pronounce, but I love starting presentations, or I've seen this in quite a lot of presentations, as a good starting point with a bit of words of wisdom or a famous quote. So what is it? It is the ability of technological advancement to do more and more with less and less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. There's a bit more to it than that. Richard Buckminster Fuller actually created this word. You can find it on Wikipedia. You can't find it in any English dictionary, especially with a spelling like that. But if you still don't get it, think of Henry Ford when he visited factories in Germany. He learned that by creating a structured process, and I'm not just talking about a digital process, but also by employing machines and measuring that particular process, he could achieve massive cost savings and far greater results. Okay, so here's the logo page. So who is Flight Centre Travel Group? We're one of the world's largest travel agents, and I guess we did have more than 20,000 people across the globe pre-COVID. We've got a vast leisure and corporate sales network, which extends throughout Australia, New Zealand, the Americas, specifically the US, Canada, and Mexico, which is where Shaun and myself are. EMEA, there are quite a few countries there to mention, and Asia, and that includes Greater China. So where did we come from? So we were founded by an Aussie guy called Screw in the 80s, and then since then we've seen incredible growth, especially from his top deck, double-decker bus tours around Europe, to now having more than 30 brands. And we're going to talk about one of our key corporate brands, and that's FCM. And Shaun, it's over to you.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks everyone for having me. I'm Shaun Clear. I'm the Global Head of Operations for FCM Travel Solutions. We are the flagship of the Flight Centre Travel Group in terms of corporate travel. So we look after large corporations and their business travel needs. We're actually present today in 97 countries globally in the FCM brand, and we compete with the likes of Amex, GBT, Carlson Wagonly, BCD, and Trip Actions. We're globally headquartered out of London. Despite Flight Centre's global headquarters being in Brisbane, FCM is a global brand, headquarters itself in the Northern Hemisphere to be closer to large multinational corporate customers. I myself reside in the US, and I report directly to the CEO of our organization, and I oversee operations, implementations, and product deployment for our teams globally. So a little bit about, I guess, the problem that we were having, and move to the next slide, Nick, if that's all right. we last year commissioned a project by the name of Project Canvas, and the objective was really to look at how we could improve the onboarding or the implementation process for our corporate customers globally. We were facing some pretty big bottlenecks in the onboarding process. As you can imagine, when you onboard a global or a multinational customer across many markets, the level of complexity increases with every single country or market that you add to the project. And we were finding that, along the journey, we had some pretty, redundant, clunky processes in place. We were using systems and tools that are a little bit archaic in nature and not really kind of in line with in today's technology. And our business process itself was very much what I would describe as a pass the baton approach. So we would have multiple teams all touching the project, more or less doing the same thing, but replicating the work. And we were not very efficient in the way that we were providing that onboarding experience to customers. So this project was mine as an executive in the organization. It was my job to look at how holistically we would improve the cycle time in our implementation process, how we would elevate the customer experience, and how we would sort of really minimize the cost involved to onboard a customer. And so the vision and mission really was to, go from taking on average 12 or 16 weeks to onboard a customer in today's environment down to, 4 weeks. And that was by really kind of having a very transformative approach and looking at all aspects of the process itself. So not just the technology, but the structure of our teams, our people, our processes, right down to things like, the KPIs and qualifications that our teams needed. But today I'll specifically talk a little bit about, I guess, some of the automation that has come out of Project Canvas and how we've evolved that into this space. Now, we started Project Canvas last year, but then COVID happened. So we, initially had engaged an outside consulting firm to come in and look at some key components of the onboarding process and look at how we could potentially automate those using some RPA technology. And one of the first key components of that onboarding process that we wanted to look at automating was the build of what we call our Hub platform. So at FCM, Hub is the central platform that corporate customers use to access their traveler profiles. They can go in there and start a booking. They can look at their travel policy. They can view their invoices. And it basically serves as kind of the nerve center for the customer's corporate travel bookings. Hub, to build and configure a Hub site for a corporate customer across multiple markets does require 100% human effort in today's environment. So it involves an implementation manager sitting behind the scenes and placing tiles, configuring things, clicking, yes, no, drop down boxes and so forth. And the scale is achieved today by really just replicating that same effort. And where it does get incredibly labor intensive in today's environment is that many customers require a single Hub build per legal entity for billing processes. And that sometimes means that we might end up having to build hundreds or thousands of Hub sites for a single customer. And that can take, a huge amount of time for our teams to perform in today's world. So I'll pass it across a little bit to Nick now, and he's going to talk a little bit through, I guess, how we took that business problem out of Project Canvas and we started to work on that together to really kind of get things to where they're headed today.
Thanks, Shaun. Okay, so what we did was we originally we looked at doing a business case, which is where every project starts. So we looked at roughly how many hubs we thought we might need, and then and how long it would take to build each one, and then I think we worked out a rough cost saving of about 162.5K there. Also, we knew that if we hired employees, it would be the equivalent of maybe 4 or 5 people working until November, and realistically, we wanted to get that done a lot sooner. I guess in terms of the 160K, we know that hopefully if travel picks back up in the near future, then this figure is likely to grow. So part of that business case as well was looking at whether we wanted to do this all ourselves, whether we wanted to do part of it with a software vendor or partner, or have the partner do everything. And there were some advantages or pros and cons, should I say, of each approach. A lot of it boiled down to costs, but also, things like developing internal expertise. So, doing this within Flight Centre meant that we could kind of knowledge share how it was built. We could build or develop, let's say, a capability internally, which would put us in good stead for future projects or extending this particular solution. But we knew that with a partner, they'd probably get us from A to B a hell of a lot faster. They could bring more experience to the plate. So that might be with specific frameworks, the Robotic Enterprise framework or whatever. But there's always a concern when you use a partner that you could become reliant on that third party for kind of ongoing help and support. And like I said before, you lose a bit of the knowledge there. So looking at kind of all three options, I think we really kind of settled on the idea that actually it was probably a wise decision right now during COVID times to do that all internally. And I was pretty confident that we could do that. Okay. So this slide kind of shows a little jigsaw of, or a puzzle of processes, forms, applications, spreadsheets, whatever. And this is kind of what it looked like to me when I started investigating or doing a bit of analysis on the project. Because originally I didn't actually think that I was going to use a business process automation tool to tackle the data collection process. So getting all the countries to fill out particular forms and submit information, which is pretty crucial to the running of the project. I just assumed that actually that information was already in a structured format. So once I got under the bonnet, let's say, I quickly discovered that this wouldn't simply be just a kind of RPA solution. This would need a product, should I say, to capture all that configuration. And that's where, K2 kind of came in. So what were the problems? Why did we choose to do a full business process automation solution or intelligent automation? Well, we realized that all the technologies or all the things that we are using at the moment, such as jot forms, various different spreadsheets, project management tools, the actual kind of proprietary software and email and Teams, and I could probably go on for a bit longer. We realized that there was just too much stuff going on here, and we needed to kind of get control of this and simplify this. Especially when I was looking at the worksheets, the spreadsheets, where the versioning was being done, and there was all these complex formulas that needed to take place. I think it was evident that there was a lot of time wasted on this process, and you also couldn't trust some of the data. So a spreadsheet is never going to replace a database, and the jot form technology, although very good for sort of submitting information, wasn't particularly that great from a validation perspective. And then when it came to the process itself, well, I guess we couldn't really see what was going on. There was no kind of transparency of that process. It was all in the hands of specific sort of skilled people, and that's where we realized that actually, well, from a process improvement standpoint, being able to see bottlenecks, do reminders, escalations, and being able to agree that process, we needed something quite capable of doing that. So this is where the solution design comes in. And and that's where we decided upon K2 Nexus as the suite of tools, should I say, that will provide us the forms, the workflows, and obviously save all that information to a database or to multiple places, but all housed under one roof. And Agentport is the product that we will, or the automation will mainly be interacting with, and UiPath we decided would be the technology to actually do the manual activities of creating a lot of these hub sites. Okay, so what does this look like? So K2 provides a very modern user experience. So we get very rich forms, quite a lot of out-of-the-box controls that you can drag onto a design canvas. It's low to no code. So you don't need to be a programming expert to pick up the tool or to support the tool. And we realized as well that we could develop these forms and we could have them available cross-platform, across multiple devices like mobile, or like embedded within certain other apps like Microsoft Teams.
And what that's just going to allow us to do, just to cut in, Nick, for a second, is really sort of shift this type of work to perhaps more junior or low-skilled, teams in the future. Today, we use some of our most experienced people to build out a hub, which doesn't really kind of tap into their, level of expertise and talent in the business. Here, because we've been able to design a really simple, interface to use, that's just going to simplify that whole entire process and mean that, moving forward, we'll be able to kind of shift a lot of that work into perhaps like a center of excellence.
Absolutely. Here, this slide just actually shows you an example of workflow that's available within the tool. So again, it's a design canvas that's drag and drop. You can configure various different business rules. So for example, if I don't know, if a process is of a specific value, then you can route it in a totally different direction. You can have rework, parallel approval activities. You can have workflows calling other workflows. There's quite a lot of capability that you get with K2 Workflow. And this is the UiPath component. So this is actually what ordinarily would be done by a human being, and they would spend a lot of time going through these forms. And you see there's quite a few tabs here. And this is not the only application that we're actually automating. But it's not a simple case of, okay, I have a list of information that I'll just key in to these various different text boxes or tick the various check boxes. No, the user right now has to go off to various different spreadsheets, and so you can see how much friction there is to someone's particular role, which is why it takes up to about an hour for that person to kind of go through this. And Sally, which is the name that we gave to the bot, she operates from information that's collected on the process via K2. So all the information is automatically passed to her, and then she will go off and do all of this all of this configuration without any necessary further interactions by a human being. And then at the end, she'll just report back to the process or back to the K2 project that she's actually completed her task. And similarly, if there's any exceptions that are generated, then that information will funnel back into the project so that the humans can see what's going on. Okay, so this slide talks about a lot of the steps that we knew that we had to go through. So I won't go through each and every step or stage, but I will say that each number is pretty much a K2 task. And we go from a kind of collection or multinational discovery stage of collecting information from going out to the client, working out what countries they're ready to roll with, and then with that list of countries, we then automate the provisioning of tasks to various different individuals globally. And there's a bit on I guess on step 7 where it passes information to Sally, and then Sally will run a build of what we call the hub shell, which is a demo site. And then a approval task is created so that the project manager and technical implementation manager can okay that Sally's done a reasonable job, or the data that's been collected is in a reasonable format. And then at that point, Sally will then be instructed to go off and complete, 10, 50, 100 plus sites that we need her to do. So this is the system diagram, and there's quite a bit going on here. So what I'll do is I'll click through it gradually. There should be a number. There we go. And you'll see these little red arrows pop up, or the arrows will get highlighted in red as I talk through it. But then the start of the process is really with the FCM staff member or people, and they key this information, or the information that's requested of them, into the K2 forms. There's a fair bit of workflow going on. But then what happens is we have UiPath orchestrator who is constantly looking out to K2 and interrogating K2 to bring back any work that it needs to add to a job queue. Okay, so once orchestrator finds some work, it will then assign that to Sally, and then Sally will go off to Agent Port and Hub Manager in this instance and do the configuration. And then once Sally is completed, then K2 is then informed via the workflow API, and basically the user is then informed as well. So this was the timeline, and this kind of got extended due to the fact that, like I say, we didn't realize that we would need to digitize the business process. So we thought that, maybe we could kind of get through this in 4 or 5 weeks in just an RPA solution. But then we put K2 over the top of it. And actually, this is probably a very long project for us in terms of K2, but the reality is it's quite a big project, and there's maybe 200 plus smart forms, views, workflows. But just to put that into perspective, we've done other projects, especially during COVID-19, contact tracing, refund requests, where we've refunded 30,000 people through, and those projects won't last longer than a week. Okay, so here we're going to see some screenshots of the solution. So I've created a pretty standard dashboard that now I reuse for all the look and feel I reuse for a lot of K2 projects. So this is just smart forms, nothing crazy going on here. There's actually not a great deal of customization, if any. So the user would land on this page, and they could look in the projects that are ongoing in the All Projects tab button. If they wanted to start a project, they could just click on the plus next to it. They have their tasks and their K2 tasks that are assigned to them and them only in the My Tasks bit. And then there's admin settings whereby an administrator can go in and configure kind of like global settings. Inside All Projects, as I mentioned before, people can check on the status of projects ongoing in here. These are just dummy ones. We're not actually working with Apple at the moment. But you can drill into these projects, and you will see more information, such as the project details. And that's where you've got the project history, and this is a big one actually, because I don't think we really collected anything as verbose as what we have here in terms of the process, because ordinarily it would be spreadsheets flying around the world and people updating stuff and no real way of auditing what's been done. And this is, I guess, bread and butter of K2, the task management component. So this particular view is from the perspective of project manager, and being able to see, okay, the United Kingdom, they're still outstanding in one of their tasks. Maybe we can chase them up, or send out a reminder, or even escalate that. And here's an example of how we can combine, I guess, lists with normal form controls or singular item level form controls. And and it's pretty cool because you can pull information into these controls from various different sources. And I'm not just talking K2. I'm not just talking Microsoft. We could pull in the weather in Toronto or New York. Just as long as there's an API, then we can get at that information. And gradually, as we sort of went through the analysis of the process and we started building this stuff, we realized that there was actually some things that we could probably do better. We had a few conversations around what these things were and whether we put them off to version 2 or the next phase. But then there's just some things that we think that actually are essential to the process, and actually running stuff in parallel versus running things sequentially actually makes a big deal. And the good thing about the way the software works, we're able to kind of drag and drop that process into like I say, into a kind of more parallel execution line. So, and phase rollouts was one thing that we also realized that actually that we had to tackle that in some way, because this would be when a customer doesn't necessarily have all their ducks in a row. So they may have some countries which are ready to be implemented versus others that just aren't. So by allowing us to do it in phases or changing the software so we could do it in phases, we could bite off smaller pieces. And then from the RPA perspective, we took advantage of a neural networks artificial intelligence service offered by UiPath. And this was to get us over a hurdle we were having with one of the forms, whereby for kind of security reasons, there was like iframes involved, and it was very difficult for the bot or Sally to kind of figure out what to do. So by taking a snapshot of the page, sending it to this AI service, and having this kind of smart bot or smart person, or well, not person, but some smart automation, process that and then send it back to the bot, and then Sally could just crack on with the rest of it. One of the things I'm working on right now is triggering the actual build process, or UiPath, by the Orchestrator API. So at the moment, Orchestrator just reaches out on a periodic basis during the day, and I think it's just more efficient if, as part of queuing up the job by the human via K2, that they can just kind of trigger Sally to start the process. Reporting and analytics is something that we're looking forward to doing with potentially something like Power BI, and getting some hard stats out of this. Okay, so this is a little 1-minute video of the solution. So blink and you will miss it. Okay, so Project Canvas. And as I mentioned before, the user will jump into this dashboard. They're able to set up a new client, start the process with a new client quickly that way. This is the tasks list in K2. There's no real craziness going on there. It's all out of the box functionality. Here is the client list. So what we're doing here is we're queuing up a job to Sally. So that job's now been loaded in K2, and like I said before, Orchestrator now will reach out to K2 and start going through the configuration. So this configuration has already been captured by all the countries by this point. So we'll only build it when we actually have something to physically build, or Sally has it to build. And you can see that she's going through and she's checking check boxes. She's doing drop-down lists. And then there's the approvals bit. So again, we use the K2 work list. And then you can have like the project manager accept or approve any of those tasks to go forward. Okay, so that's the demo. And thank you for joining us. So this was done originally at the Intelligent Automation Week show. So don't try and go over to the K2's virtual booth now, because I'm pretty sure it'll be closed.
So funny. Thank you, Nick. Hey, this is Jen from K2. I run our global marketing programs here at K2. One of the questions that actually did come up that I'd love to just pose to you guys, get your response on it as well. Could you guys share what measures you guys took to actually determine ROI? I think that's a question that some of our prospective customers would be interested to know, so they can use that to pitch this to their companies as well. Do you have insights into that?
Yeah, I guess there are a few things. We mentioned earlier that when we embarked on Project Canvas, the overall goal was to reduce our cycle time from somewhere around the 16-week mark down to 4 weeks. The hub build piece is only one component of that onboarding, and so we're not going to get from 16 weeks down to 4 weeks just by doing this. We need to continue on this path and inject more of the K2 and UiPath solution into our process. But specifically for this particular exercise, what we're looking at is, I guess, the time reduction taken to build out a hub versus what Sally is going to be, our robot is going to be able to do for us. So on average today, it takes an implementation manager about 45 minutes to build out a hub site, one site for one customer, one legal entity. And to give you an example, we're onboarding a very large global customer today who has 400 hub sites that we need to build. So you're looking at 400 times 45 minutes. What Sally will be able to do for us, and the way the design has been with K2 and the bot coming together, is that we can program that solution to just continuously be building those solutions. So whether it's days, nights, weekends, we'll be able to do what a human has had to probably take 1,600 minutes to do on average. Now we'll be able to do it in the background on a weekend, overnight, on a public holiday. So that in itself is a huge ROI in terms of the productivity that we get back to our people. The other piece that we're really kind of excited about is just the quality and the consistency that it's going to deliver. And one thing, is when you do have 400 hub sites built by a human, there's always going to be errors. There's always going to be things that get missed, little details that are omitted as it scales up. Often it is multiple people building those hubs. So there is an inconsistency in what people are doing in different parts of the world for the same customer, and that has an impact on quality. So this is going to, I guess, render that challenge completely redundant for us, and we're going to have zero quality control issues, as opposed to having to go back and correct issues as well. So they're probably the two things I think out of this particular exercise that we're really excited about.
That's great. Thanks, Shaun. So it's very nice of you guys to put your email addresses here. I want to make sure I let people know if you actually have questions or want a customized demo, we're happy to provide that for you. If you want to send an email to info@k2.com, we're happy to get someone who can actually give that personalized demo for you. Huge thank you to both Nick and Shaun for doing this presentation again for us. We had some technical difficulties with the recording from IA Digital Week, but this presentation was really great, and we really appreciate you guys doing this again. So with that, thanks so much, and I hope you all have a great day.
Pleasure, and thanks for having us.
All right.